After a great win, I'm not all that good, and after a bad loss, I'm not all that bad.
The chairs were still warm, section after section across the Hard Rock Stadium.
When Alex talks about saving dreams and lifting the broken, she is not speaking in motivational poster language. She is describing what it looks like when a young girl from a developing country with limited resources.
Fox Sports in full meltdown. Eala's $50 million legal bomb just detonated and nobody saw this coming. Welcome back to Champions Tennisitics, the only channel on the internet that doesn't just cover tennis. We live it, breathe it, and when the sport bleeds into something this massive, this culturally explosive, this genuinely historic, we go all the way in. And folks, I need you to understand something before we even get started today. What you are about to hear is not your average sports story. This is not a ranking update. This is not a match recap. This is a 5-alarm, building is on fire, sirens are screaming moment that is reshaping the entire relationship between professional athletes and the media machines that have fed off them for decades. So if you are new here, buckle up, because Champions Tennisitics does not do things halfway. And if you are a returning fan, you already know, we brought you here first, and we are about to deliver again. Here is the headline that is currently melting every sports media server on the planet. Eala, the 23-year-old tennis superstar from the Philippines, the number 3 ranked player in the entire world, the pride of Southeast Asia, the product of the legendary Rafa Nadal Academy, has just filed a $50 million lawsuit against one of the most powerful sports broadcasting networks in America. And the reason she did it is going to make your jaw drop, your blood boil, and your respect for this young woman skyrocket to levels you never thought possible. But before we get to the legal earthquake, we have to start at the very beginning, because context is everything, and the setup to this story is just as dramatic as the lawsuit itself. Picture the scene. The stadium lights are blazing. 24,000 fans are packed into the arena, screaming at full volume. The cameras are rolling. The entire world is watching. And there, in the middle of all of that electric chaos, Eala does something that professional athletes almost never allow themselves to do in public. She lets the wall come down. Her eyes, usually laser-focused and fierce, go soft and glassy. Her voice, usually confident and measured, begins to crack at the edges. And she stands before the global audience and admits something devastatingly honest. She says she is not a machine. She says she is not just a ranking number or a highlight reel or a merchandise opportunity. She says she is a human being, and right now, in this very moment, being human is extraordinarily hard. The crowd, to their absolute credit, responded the way a crowd should when a champion shows her humanity. They gave her a standing ovation. They wrapped her in warmth. They cheered for her not despite her vulnerability, but because of it. Social media lit up within seconds. Former champions and current rivals alike flooded their platforms with messages of solidarity. Tennis legends who had once stood in similar spotlights and felt similar weights shared their support. Fans from the Philippines, from Spain, from across Southeast Asia and beyond, flooded Alex's comments with love and admiration. The consensus among virtually every human being on the planet who witnessed that moment was clear. This was courage. This was authenticity. This was an elite athlete reminding us all that behind the trophies and the sponsorship deals and the perfectly curated public image, there is still a person who feels everything. And that should have been the end of it. A beautiful, unifying moment of sporting humanity. The kind of clip that gets replayed at award ceremonies and retirement tributes. The kind of moment that makes people fall in love with sport all over again. But we do not live in that world. We live in a world where certain corners of sports media have decided that outrage is a business model and cruelty is a content strategy. And while the rest of the planet was extending its hand to Eala, one particular Fox Sports host was sharpening his knives. The very next morning, while Alex was still processing what had been one of the most emotionally raw experiences of her professional career, this man walked on national television, settled into his chair, looked directly into the camera, and proceeded to deliver what can only be described as one of the most spectacularly ill-judged monologues in the history of sports broadcasting. We are not going to name him directly in this video, because frankly, he has already gotten far more attention than he deserves, and the last thing we are going to do is hand him another second of unearned fame on this channel. But trust me, if you have spent any time in the sports media ecosystem, you know exactly who we are talking about. The type who mistakes volume for intelligence. The type whose entire identity is built on being the loudest voice in the room, regardless of whether that voice is saying anything remotely worthwhile. On this particular morning, this man made a series of decisions that are going to define the rest of his career, and not in a good way. He did not just criticize Alex's performance on the court, which would have been entirely within the bounds of legitimate sports commentary, however unpleasant. He did not just suggest she had a rough match, or analyze her serve percentage, or question her tactical decisions under pressure.
Lean on the coffee side.
All right, well, Alex, it's no secret that you have an insane amount of fan support.
This host did not stop at the cruel opinion journalism that, unfortunately, his type has always leaned on as a defense mechanism. He crossed a very specific, very clearly marked legal line. He looked into that camera and told his audience, with the confidence of someone presenting established facts, that Eala's entire emotional breakdown was a staged, calculated, pre-planned public relations stunt. He said it was manufactured by her management team to distract from and excuse what he called a choke. He told viewers that she was not genuinely struggling with the weight of elite competition and public expectation. He told them she was performing, acting, faking it, all, he claimed, to protect the multi-million-dollar endorsement contracts that depend on her maintaining a positive public image. Read those words again and let them sink in. He told millions of people that one of the most authentic, emotionally transparent moments any athlete has shared with the public in recent memory was a lie, a manipulation, a calculated deception designed to exploit the audience's empathy for financial gain. And as if that were not enough damage for one broadcast, he then took his circus to a podcast, a widely listened to, unfiltered companion podcast where, freed from even the minimal editorial constraints of a televised studio, he reportedly went further. He made disparaging remarks about Alex's family. He hinted at fabricated stories about the motivations of the people closest to her. He made statements about her character that went so far beyond opinion and so firmly into the territory of defamation that legal experts who later reviewed the recordings were reportedly astonished that the content ever made it to air. He presented his fabrications not as personal takes or heated commentary, but as insider knowledge. As if he had access to information the public did not. As if he knew something about Eala's private arrangements and internal team discussions that gave him the authority to call her a fraud. He did not. He knew nothing. He was making it up. And he said it as fact. The internet reacted in the way the internet always reacts to this kind of thing. It exploded. The clip went viral within hours. The host got the engagement spike he was almost certainly hoping for. His name trended. People shared the clip in outrage, which of course means they were still sharing it. The algorithm rewarded the cruelty, as it so often does. And somewhere in a corner office at Fox Sports, someone probably looked at the traffic numbers and thought this was a win. Then Eala's legal team got to work. Here is what makes this moment so historically significant, and why Champions Tennisitics felt it was essential that we give this story the full, comprehensive, deep dive treatment it deserves. For as long as sports media has existed, there has been an unwritten understanding between athletes and broadcasters. The broadcasters hold enormous institutional power. They control the narrative. They have the microphone, the distribution network, the legal teams, and the advertising revenue. Athletes, even the most famous and successful ones, are generally advised by their management to stay quiet, ignore the noise, and focus on their performance. Engaging with media personalities is considered beneath the dignity of a professional, and fighting back legally is considered a distraction, a public relations risk, and an uphill battle against corporate legal firepower that most individuals simply cannot sustain. This is exactly why so many of these media personalities have operated for so long with what amounts to total impunity. They have spent years, sometimes decades, knowing that they can say almost anything about almost any athlete and face essentially zero personal or professional consequence. The athlete gets hurt. The athlete's team releases a bland statement about focusing on tennis. The host gets a ratings bump. Everyone moves on. The cycle repeats. Naomi Osaka broke down in tears in press conferences.
Naomi Osaka has left her press conference in tears after a round one loss to Paula Badosa. Osaka won the first set in a tiebreaker before losing the next.
And was publicly eviscerated by certain corners of the media rather than supported. Emma Raducanu, at 18 years old, was subjected to analysis of her mental toughness that would have been considered grossly inappropriate in almost any other professional context. Serena Williams spent literally 2 decades fighting both on and off the court against a media and institutional ecosystem that consistently applied standards to her that it applied to nobody else. These women were strong. They were brilliant. They were pioneers. And they were all, to varying degrees, failed by a system that let the bullies operate without consequence. Alex Eala just looked at that system and decided she was done with it. She did not fire back on Twitter. She did not release an emotional video response. She did not give interviews about how hurt she was. She went quiet. And while the host was busy enjoying his moment in the viral spotlight, while he was doing follow-up segments and doubling down and performing confidence for an audience that was eating it up, Alex's legal team was doing something far more consequential than clapping back on social media. They were building a case. A meticulous, detailed, thoroughly documented $50 million case. When the lawsuit officially landed, the sports world stopped moving for a moment. $50 million. Let that number breathe for a second. This is not the kind of number you attach to a filing when you are trying to send a polite message. This is the kind of number you attach when you want to make it unambiguously clear that you are not playing games, you are not looking for an apology, and you are not going away. This is a number designed to be heard in boardrooms, not just courtrooms. The legal framework of the suit is, according to those who have reviewed the filings, genuinely formidable. The argument is not simply that the host was unkind or that his commentary was in poor taste. The argument is that he presented fabricated information as verified fact to a mass audience. The argument is that by alleging, as a matter of stated fact rather than personal opinion, that Alex Eala orchestrated a fraudulent PR stunt, the host made claims that are specifically and demonstrably false, and that those false claims caused measurable, quantifiable harm to her reputation and her earning potential. The podcast appearances are particularly damaging to the host's legal position, because on a podcast, stripped of even the limited editorial framework of a television broadcast, that is the power of what she has done here. Even before this case reaches any kind of resolution, it has already changed the calculus for every media personality in the sport. The assumption of impunity, the comfortable belief that you can say anything about an athlete as long as you frame it as your opinion, has been fundamentally destabilized. And it has been destabilized not by a policy change or a regulatory ruling, but by a 23-year-old woman who decided she had taken enough and that her worth was $50 million, not a dollar less. What is happening on the court while all of this unfolds is also worth noting because it tells you everything you need to know about who Alex Eala actually is. She is practicing. She is working. She is back in the grind of being one of the 3 best tennis players in the world, because that is what she is, and a lawsuit, however significant, does not change the fact that there are Grand Slams to play and rankings to defend and fans across the Philippines and beyond who are counting on her to keep doing what she does at the highest level. She absorbed the worst the media could throw at her, handed it to her lawyers, and went back to work. If that does not demonstrate the kind of mental toughness the Fox Sports host was questioning, nothing does. Let us also take a moment to zoom out and appreciate the cultural dimension of this story, because it would be a genuine disservice to discuss Alex Eala without acknowledging what she represents to an enormous portion of the global population. She is not just a tennis player. She is a symbol of what is possible for an entire region of the world that has historically been underrepresented in the upper echelons of international sport. When she wins, millions of people feel like they win with her. When she is attacked, those same millions feel the attack personally. The outpouring of support from the Philippines and from across Southeast Asia in response to this lawsuit has been overwhelming and deeply moving. And the message from those communities is unified. She did not just do this for herself. She did it for every athlete who was told to be quiet. She did it for every young woman who was told her feelings were a weakness. She did it for every person from a non-traditional tennis market who was told, subtly or directly, that they did not quite belong at the top table. She belongs, and she just made sure everyone knows the price of suggesting otherwise. As this legal battle moves forward, the entire sports world is watching. Will Fox Sports attempt to fight the case in open court, where the discovery process could expose internal communications, editorial decisions, and private conversations that nobody at that network wants aired in public? Will they settle, and in doing so implicitly confirm everything Alex's legal team has argued about the damage their host caused? Will the host himself become the subject of network disciplinary action that preempts or complicates the legal proceedings? These are all questions that are going to play out over the coming months, and Champions Tennisitics will be here for every single development. But here is what is already certain, regardless of how the legal process concludes. The landscape has shifted. Eala entered this situation as a tennis player who showed the world her humanity in a vulnerable moment. She is emerging from it as something considerably larger. She is emerging as a person who looked at a system that has operated without accountability for far too long and decided, with complete clarity and extraordinary courage, to hold it accountable. The $50 million figure is not just a legal demand. It is a statement. It is a declaration. It is a line drawn in the clay, the grass, and the hard court that says this stops here, and it stops now. So here we are, and I genuinely want to know what you think about all of this. Because the conversation happening in the comments sections, in the fan forums, and the tennis communities online is one of the most passionate and divided I have seen in years of covering this sport. Some people believe $50 million is the exact right number, that the only language these massive media corporations truly understand is financial pain, and that anything less would have been dismissed as a minor inconvenience. Others are debating whether the lawsuit, however justified the underlying anger, is the right tool, or whether it opens Alex up to the kind of prolonged public scrutiny that could overshadow her on-court story for years to come. And then there are those who simply want to talk about the broader principle, about whether this moment finally, genuinely, represents a turning point in the relationship between athletes and the media ecosystems that profit from their stories. Every single one of those conversations is worth having. So get into the comments right now, drop your hottest take, your most thoughtful analysis, your most passionate defense of wherever you stand on this. Tell me whether you think Alex went exactly as far as she needed to go, or whether this is the opening chapter of something even bigger. Tell me whether you think Fox Sports deserves everything that is coming to them, or whether you see any side of this that the mainstream coverage is missing. I want to hear from the tennis fans, the media watchers, the legal eagles, and everyone in between. Because this is what Champions Tennisitics is built for. Not just the match scores and the ranking updates and the tournament draws, though we love all of that too. We are built for the moments when tennis becomes bigger than tennis. When the story on the court spills into the world in a way that actually matters, that actually changes things, that actually forces us to ask real questions about power and fairness and the price of being human in a world that sometimes profits from your pain. Eala asked those questions this week in the most dramatic way possible, and the whole world is listening for the answer. If this video gave you something to think about, something to feel, something to argue about with your friends, then you know exactly what to do. Hit that like button hard, because it tells the algorithm that this story matters, and it gets it in front of more people who need to hear it. Subscribe to Champions Tennisitics if you are not already part of this family, because we are just getting warmed up and you do not want to miss what comes next. Ring that notification bell so the second we drop the next chapter of this story, you are the first to know. And share this video with every tennis fan, every sports media watcher, every person who has ever cheered for an athlete and wanted to see them stand up for themselves. Because this is a story worth spreading. This is Champions Tennisitics. The game never stops. The truth never sleeps. And neither do we. See you in the next one.
Does that come with kind of pressure or is it pride?
I would say more pride. I think it depends how you look at it. And
After a great win, I'm not all that good, and after a bad loss, I'm not all that bad.
The chairs were still warm. Section after section across the hardwood.
Lean on the coffee side.
All right. Well, Alex, it's no secret that you have an insane amount of fan support.